What can kill you but you are doing it every day? I know what you mean, and as a dad now I understand. But as a 9 or 10-year-old in the ADS, I once grabbed the steering wheel while arguing with my dad in the car. Almost killed both of us. Without a word, but I could smell the heat coming off of his head, he pulled over, removed me from the car, and drove off. It was pouring rain. I ran after the car, and I remember that my favorite G.I. Joe flip-flops fell off, and I hadn't initially noticed, and I had already started crying. I never regretted anything, especially my pride, so much in my life at that moment. He was just circling the block, and I was met with a hug and an explanation about how it would be worse if one of us were dead. Yeah, it was maybe extreme or abusive, and I'm still a little fucked about it, but for shit sure it was effective. I would never do that to my kids, but I obsessively point out ahead of time how things like stairs, cars, pools, parking lots, how all that stuff can go wrong really quick. This happened to a friend of mine a few years back. They came back from the bar and he went upstairs while she was downstairs cooking them up some noms. She heard a crashed and thud and found him with his skull split open / smashed and bleeding everywhere at the bottom of the stairs. Head wounds, bleed like crazy, man. We all helped her move out of her place as quick as she possibly could. It isn't good for anybody to stay in the same domicile your partner just died in a horrible accident in, yeah no? Shit was rough for a while. I think about this sometimes when I'm stupid drunk / high and just instead ask my sober friend to get me the random thing I need from downstairs. I've since moved to a new area from where that accident was, so these friends didn't have to see the blood stain on the floor as we helped her move, so they don't get it all. But they are good friends, so they still take care of me when I ask for help, even if they think it's weird. Yup, learned my lesson the hard way. Wooden staircase and I was upstairs. I heard my phone go off downstairs. I ran to grab it in cotton socks. About 2 steps down and my feet slid out from under me, and thankfully I slid down the stairs on my back. I had to take 2 weeks off work because of the pain, but thankfully nothing permanent. Also had a close friend die in Texas. Not too much is known of what happened, but she was likely drunk and slipped. Her fiancé came home from work around 11 p.m. and found her at the bottom of the staircase with her head split wide open, unconscious, and a shattered bottle of wine. Who knows how long she had been laying there. She died a couple days later in hospital. So sad. She was one of my best friends and the sweetest person you can imagine. I almost fell running into a subway, to catch a train, not a sandwich, lol, in South Philly late for work, but luckily I was able to grab the handrail and some big guy behind me was nice and close enough to grab my collar and help keep me up, lol. That was a close one and would have been bad. Those stairs are concrete. I almost had an accident carrying a heavy cooler filled with drinks down like 3 steps not too long ago. Maybe wasn't deadly, but I sprained my ankle pretty badly. I've made sure to walk very carefully going up and down stairs. I don't have the best luck with them, lol. Agreed, stress is such an awkward thing to try and combat too. Like, I have an office job, and back in June this year, after working from home since March last year, I had to return to the office full time. Now I'd like to clarify that it bugged me, but only as my job can be fully done from literally anywhere, but they were good about following COVID guidelines and things, so I wasn't worried about it. I was annoyed about it. Anyways, 2 weeks back and start having heart palpitations, lasted a few days but only whilst I was in work, so I rang my doctors and I got an appointment. Apart from being overweight and other things which don't affect my heart, I was perfectly healthy. Doc said 100% it's work-related stress. You're totally fine outside of work, so it's definitely work-related stress, so you're having the next 2 weeks off with a sick note, and if you need more time then come back and I'll give you another note. Stress can cause all sorts of issues in your life, even serious medical issues. If you think something in your life, especially in your job, is causing you so much stress that you're getting other medical issues, can get stress-induced headaches, migraines, or like me you could get heart palpitations too, so go see your doctor and see what they can do for you. Life is too short to ignore that shit. What will be found is a shriveled body on the ground covered in feces, urine, vomit, and other body fluids. Skin has been sloughing off, Google that one with care. There is a trail of human waste from your bed to your bathroom. You stopped cleaning and bathing a long time ago. No one comes by anymore. It's been a long time since you have seen anyone that's not the guy at the checkout. Cans are everywhere, but you quit drinking cans a long time ago too. It's bottles now, large plastic ones. There's a reason nurses and doctors can prescribe shot glasses of whiskey when someone is in the hospital for something unrelated. Racked with pain is how they describe it in the simplest terms. It's possible you have been doing some shoplifting while you still had strength. In the end, your body has gotten so jaundiced and your liver is wrecked with cirrhosis. If they were to look in, it would be just a mass of scars. It's possible that you developed hepatitis. Your liver no longer can process your body's waste along with the hundreds of other super important things it does. You are constantly defecating on yourself. You stopped eating a while ago and your brain is suffering from dementia. No longer having strength to walk to the bathroom, you tried crawling for a while. What ultimately ended your life probably doesn't matter. It is the most horrific way to die. I can't tell you exactly from experience, but I can comment on seeing someone go through it. For starters, unless you get alcohol poisoning, killing yourself from alcoholism takes years. For my brother, I like to say it was watching him die slowly, until it was really fast. Overall, it took about 8 years after he ended up in the hospital the first time. He died at 41. Things started getting serious the first time he ended up in the hospital for pancreatitis, year 1. From what I hear, it's one of the worst pains imaginable. You can't eat or drink anything unless it subsides, which will take multiple days. For my brother, this happened numerous times where he ended up in the hospital. During this time he would detox and had to have a nurse watching 24/7 until the alcohol fully left his system, which would take a couple of days. I hear it's miserable, and would occasionally cause hallucinations for him. He didn't like me and my family seeing him at this time as he was still too proud with what was happening. This lasted about 6 years with many trips to the ER and ICU. Then came the liver damage, slowly but surely. When his liver started to go, fluids started building up in the abdomen and feet as the liver is no longer fully functionally. He was getting cirrhosis and starting to scar the liver tissue, which can't be reversed. To relieve this buildup, he had to have it drained. Think of the draining as sticking a big ass needle in your stomach or feet. I recall one time they drained 10 liters of fluid, which is incredible to think about as this is about 20 pounds of fluid. At this time he needed a liver transplant, which he couldn't get unless he was sober, even if a family member offered, which my mom did. Also, he was so sickly he wouldn't have survived anyways. This started off once or twice a month, and ended around 2 to 3 times a week. Somewhere during this time he started developing neuropathy, which is pins and needles in the feet. But unlike when you sit on your foot weird and it lasts a few minutes, this is pretty much permanent and is incredibly painful. Additionally, it's now very hard to move around. Once this started and as he continued to drink, we all knew it wasn't going to be long, less than a year. Eventually, he binge drank, considerably more so than usual, as he already drank a lot, when the family was out of town for a couple of days one long weekend, as I feel he just wanted it to be over. When my parents got home and found him, he asked to be taken to the hospital one last time. He knew it was over, and without saying so, he unlocked his phone and left all of his personal effects at home. He had killed his kidneys and had acute kidney failure. I remember reading it on the report from the doctor like it was yesterday, with the acronym AKF written all simple and plain, like it was no big deal. Of course this was a death sentence and now was the time to say goodbye as he only had a few days left. In all, he went to the hospital on a Saturday afternoon and passed away Thursday evening. On Monday I had to go pick up his 7-year-old daughter who lived up north with her mom, and bring her to the hospital to say goodbye to her father. We were hoping he could spend his final moments at home, but even leaving the hospital was too much for his body at that point. He was an amazing dad and sacrificed for her, but even with something to live for, the 20+ years he drank couldn't be overcome. If you've made it this far, my only hope is that this story will make you think twice about picking up that drink. Stopping now will be harder than stopping later. Take each day at a time, and know that you're not alone. I'm coming up 2 years since his death and I still think about him every day. I can only imagine how hard this is for his daughter. If anyone is going through this, feel free to send me a message if you want to talk. That's not quite the explanation I found. https://www.diabetes.co.uk/diabetes-dead-in-bed-syndrome.html. It's not that the insulin is not absorbed and becomes poisonous, but that you're more likely to have hypoglycemia unawareness with the old human insulin, as compared to newer insulins. And a severe hypoglycemic episode in the night coupled with no awareness of what's happening is a recipe for death. On another note, if you're running out of insulin early, ask your doctor to update your prescription to more closely match or slightly exceed the amount of insulin you are actually using. If you use a sliding scale and carb ratio, your doctor should include the max number of units per day you use, on average. My girlfriend is a type 1 diabetic. We have been together for 5 years. This is a nice thought, but I have regularly had her hand me the phone to argue with her healthcare provider because they refuse to give her more than a certain amount of insulin per prescription. With her old health insurance company, you could get as much as you needed, if you were going on a lengthy vacation without access to their pharmacies, for example. Her company switched and now she can only get 1 vial of slow-acting insulin per month. If she runs out she'd die, and depending on her hormones and diet the amount needed per month can vary drastically. Additionally, if she wants to change anything about it, she has to have an in-person appointment with her endocrinologist. Due to COVID, she'd need a doctor's recommendation to see one, and the company takes their sweet-ass time getting back to her. She's had the insurance for 6 months and hasn't yet been able to see an endocrinologist. Your sentiment and advice is good, but the reality is that the restrictions and how they're handled by healthcare providers is even worse in some areas of the US than you may think. I just had to pump the brakes and I stopped drinking for 30 days all through the month of August. I have never been a big drinker, but because my wife drinks daily, the stresses of COVID world life, and the unfathomable fucking quarantine boredom, I found myself getting plowed sometimes 3 or 4 nights a week. It helped me to shut my brain down and to cope better with reality, but it also made me feel down and hopeless a lot of the time. Especially the next day when you feel like shit and hate the whole world. I have tried edibles and tried smoking medical grade, but it sends my mind into hyperspace and I start worrying about random shit. To the point where now I can't really enjoy either. I think I'd really love to just eat opiates every day, but I know where that shit leads. Not an option. One thing is for sure, being completely sober in this day and age is fucking difficult. It sucks. Forcefully surviving my mental health. Like, I've been so burned out, I have autism, so I tend to bottle up emotions, and work 40+ hours a week, while 9K in debt, with 3 collectors after me, all while still going to school, while my grandpa is close to death. Edit, thanks for the encouragement. I had a few extra details that I forgot to add. I haven't had a mental breakdown in years. For people with autism, a mental breakdown is normal when the environment is too much, so bottling it up is actually a lot worse. I've been going on this burnout stage for about 6 years. I have regular episodes of depression, to extreme joy, to just hating everything. I'm not bipolar, either, so I can't keep my mind in check, since I normally keep myself in check on tasks. I absolutely fear losing my job, constantly, despite having a solid position in the company, so that is why the 9K is a huge factor. The debt collectors only require 1,300, which I'm constantly afraid of being sued, too soon. Heroin. I can't seem to stop despite how hard I try. I always go back to it. I've been able to get long times of sobriety, like 13 months several times, but then I go back because I can't stop myself. Life just doesn't seem worth it enough to stop. I've lost so much because of my addiction, and the logical side of my brain hates it, and wants to stop, but the emotional side of my brain loves it because it blocks out all the bullshit and pain of life. When I go without it for 12 hours, I'll start to get sick, leading some combination of diarrhea, puking, cold sweats, restless legs, hot cold flashes, and more. It's rough even with the meds my doctor gave me. My depression doesn't help with gaining motivation to stop either, and sometimes I get so low I don't care what happens, ya know? Anyway, sorry for the rant. So yeah, despite the fact it's killed a handful of friends and could kill me, I still do it every day. For now anyway. Anyway, sorry for the rant. Amphetamines. 67 YRS old and have been using for 40 plus YRS and not dead yet. I totally stopped for 8 YRS and was miserable the whole time. My brain went dead and there was no joy in my life. I started to drink. At one point a fifth a day of whiskey. Then I just stopped. After 6 months I started speed again. I'm back from the dead. There is joy in my life again. My brain is working again. I'm creative again. I am semi-retired but work part-time at an amazing job. I play guitar extensively. Life is good again. I have always been a functioning addict. I never spun out or tweaked. I put a small amount in coffee every morning and that is it for the day. I sleep every night. I have watched lots of people lose themselves, some died, but it never affected me that way. It gives me focus. Without it I never had an attention span, even as a child. I'm in good health. Don't smoke or drink. Low blood pressure, low cholesterol, not overweight. Never been arrested for it. All drugs are legal now in my state. Weird, huh? Sure, it could kill me, but at my age I don't care. I've had a good life. I have a beautiful wife of 40 YRS, kids, and grandkids. I am the exception. How I got to this point I am still trying to understand. This is not an endorsement because most people manage to go straight to the bottom. Oh, and I often eat a gallon of ice cream in a day. That's my other addiction. That will probably kill me. Gotta get back to my pistachio nut. Thanks for listening and commenting. Bye now. Walking dogs. I work for 2 companies and privately work for others. The sheer amount of times someone has bold faces lied to me about the aggressive level of the animal is insane. Some just don't know. Sometimes the animal becomes cage aggressive and needs a calm, slow approach, and it's totally fine. But then sometimes one will flip on you. Luckily, in my experience, the ones most likely to flip out are really little, so if you can read the body language, half moon eyes, shoulder and tail posture, you get a warning. So it's just a matter of getting your hands away. But a large dog can really ruin your day or kill you. We had 4 that were in a family in daycare that were in a timeout in daycare for being rough, and the pool guy showed up to treat the pool. He entered the yard and all 4 of these sweet dogs attacked him. He's about 6 feet 5 inches and 300 pounds, and it was nothing for these animals to take him down, and he couldn't get up. If the staff that knows these dogs wasn't there to call them off, he would have been killed. They are a breed of dogs associated with being friendly, but they formed a pack and took down this guy. I've seen a single dog almost kill 2 people because it was sedated and we were not told. Despite it all, I love dogs and will work with them, but never underestimate their abilities.